I looked at my life in an entirely different way. Before the heart attack, it was all about awards and achievements and salaries and suits and, meet you at lunch, let's do lunch together, glass awards. And then when I had the heart attack, my whole perspective of the way I looked at life had changed. When I wake up in the morning now, I'm truly grateful for the opportunity to live out my life. Whereas before, I kind of took my life for granted. I took my health for granted. I took my relationships for granted. And I always tell people that your most precious possessions in your life are your relationships, because that's where God shows up, is at the intersections of relationships. And we learn so many different things in our relationships. Relationships that are challenging and relationships that are joyous. Each relationship that we have in our lives are presented to us for a very precious reason. And that's to help develop ourselves and certainly to share our gifts with others. For example, I got up and the very first thing I said is this. I said, 7 months ago, my wife and I were in the car, and we were in her car, and it was a relatively new car, and we took a right-hand turn, and it sounded like there was a loose bolt in the dash of the car. And she said to me, honey, we've got to get that fixed. Well, 7 months later, I was picking her up at Logan Airport, and she said, tomorrow I'm going to get my car serviced and fixed. And so she goes, and I receive a phone call from her, and she said, you're never going to believe this, Don. They found 99 acorns in the dash of the car. And the question that begs to be asked in our family is this. I'm the squirrely one, so why didn't it happen in my vehicle rather than my wife's vehicle? We all want to forgive, and we all want to be forgiven. And there was a story of Ernest Hemingway where he wrote the story of a young man that ran away from home because he had betrayed his father. And the father discovered that he had moved to Madrid, Spain. So the father goes to Madrid, Spain, and he takes out an ad in the paper. He says, Paco, I love you, I miss you. Please meet me at the Hotel Montana, noon on Tuesday. All is forgiven. So when the father goes the next day to meet his son, what he encounters is over 100 young men by the name of Paco to be there, to be forgiven by their fathers. We all have this desire to forgive and to be forgiven. Well, I handed out a list that how forgiveness is played out in our lives. And what we learn is we learn to face what they did and forgive them anyway. We learn to pray for them. We learn to ask for God's blessing in their life. We resolve to not tell others what they did to us. We refuse to remind them how they hurt us. We ask that God will bless them in their lives. We try to help them out whenever we can. And we don't rejoice in their problems and their setbacks in their life. And that's the power of forgiveness. Because if you don't forgive, you will not be forgiven by God. God says that, verse 14 in the 6th chapter of Matthew. And God says in verse 14, if you forgive your sons and daughters and brothers, I will forgive you. But if you don't forgive your brothers and sisters, I won't forgive you. The author C.S. Lewis once said that after 30 years, when I was praying, it occurred to me that I was ready to forgive this person that had been such a struggle to forgive in my life. And then I realized that person was myself. Self-forgiveness is the most difficult step that we need to take, because you know something? We are absolutely so tough on ourselves, and we will never take that step of truly forgiving others unless we forgive ourselves.